Hello, I wanted to talk about male self-esteem and the 5 stages of grief. The 5 stages of grief, the denial, bargaining, anger, sadness, and then finally acceptance. I think MGTOW is, it tends toward the acceptance side of things, but there are a lot of men who don't go through all 5 stages or are stunted in their grieving process. And it is a grieving process when you have to let go of, well, some pretty powerful delusions or some very powerful motivations in the form of fantasies. There's a lot of fantasy that's built up around women and the dream girl or whatever. And in order to let go of that, you really do have to go through the 5 stages. I mean, there's obviously denial, which is to say that, oh no, there's the one out there. She's somewhere. I just have to look harder. So you get this histrionic, or am I using that word right? This frantic denial of reality, really, and that's not MGTOW. That's pretty much the blue pill world and everything before MGTOW. And then you have bargaining, which is, I suppose, you would settle. I'm not exactly sure what the bargaining stage, if you were stunted in the bargaining stage of the 5 stages of grief in regards to female fantasies. I would imagine you just bargain and say, oh, we don't talk about that, or, well, no, that would be denial. Bargaining, I guess you'd maybe become a PUA. You would, gosh, I don't know, start making deals with the metaphorical devil, Mephistopheles. What was the Faustian bargain? You make a deal with the devil to impress a woman or something like that. Let's see. Then the next one would be anger. There are a lot of men who get truncated or stunted or are not allowed to proceed beyond the anger phase. I see a lot of angry MGTOWs, and that's perfectly fine. That's valid. There's a lot to be angry about, frankly. And if you're just coming upon these realizations of, maybe women aren't as good as they were made out to be, right? And, maybe they wear a little bit more makeup, or they're not as virtuous, or whatever as you thought that they were. Or maybe they don't have this inherent value, that they aren't simply valuable for being, and that they, I suppose, have to prove their worth just like everyone else, which would mean that everyone else being men, right? The women have to prove their worth just like men do. And virtue isn't something that you're born with, it's something that you earn and that you work toward and that you are as a conscious choice. And maybe you're realizing that there are a lot of corrupt women out there, and that can make you angry, and that's perfectly valid. And I don't want to tell angry MGTOWs that they shouldn't be angry, because they should. In a lot of ways, they should. Just know that it's a phase, it's a process, right? That's stage 3. And there are a lot of men who they grow up and they don't get a chance to be angry. Society hates an angry man. I mean, it'll do whatever it can to squelch that, as long as it's not directed in a societally accepted way, like soldiering or being a mixed martial artist or whatever anger channel society prefers a man to take. But by and large, an angry man is rejected by society, because an angry man is a very dangerous thing for society, even though that may be a very good thing. I mean, if reality makes you angry, that can be a fuel for a number of things. But for whatever reason, some men get stunted at the stage of anger, and they're told not to be angry, and that doesn't help, that doesn't work, that doesn't do anything. It's not constructive, and it won't lead to growth, and frankly, it'll only lead to this kind of pent-up bitterness, which doesn't resolve any of the issues, nor does it improve society, nor the individual. So I think it's perfectly valid to be angry, and I think that your anger is valuable. If you happen to be an angry MGTOW, that's a good thing. I mean, there's a lot of fuel in that, and a lot of work has been done by people who are angry. And I'm not going to tell you not to be angry. A lot of people will. A lot of people will be concern trolls. I'm not trying to be a concern troll here. I'm saying that your anger is valuable and that it is valid. and that I accept it, and that it is in many ways a fidelitous response to reality. It's true in a lot of ways. So, I mean, I don't know how else to say it, but hopefully I don't get anyone saying, well, you're just telling men not to be angry. No, that's not the case at all. I'm saying that there's more, and I would like to hope, I would like to help, if at all possible, to encourage you to get beyond anger if you're in that phase, because you know, if you're stuck there, it's just going to be, well, elevated blood pressure for the rest of your life, and it's not going to work well for you. I mean, anger is good, but it has its place. Obviously, the next stage of the 5 stages of grief is sadness, and there are a lot of men who are not allowed to be sad in society, and I don't think that's right. You get this thing where mothers are telling their boys, boys don't cry, or, you know, you happen upon a man who's in grieving or who's crying or something, and you get this attack from so many people, like, oh, you're a faggot, you stop crying, you little bitch, or something. I know my brother, I was going through a very dark phase when I was an adolescent, and I was actually suicidal, and he said, I can't believe my brother is such a whiner, and it was just devastating. By and large, men are not allowed to be sad, and that is a travesty. That is a huge disservice to everyone involved, because when you erect this wall at the 4th stage of grieving, of sadness, you can never get to acceptance, and that's not, well, you're creating I guess a hobbled person that doesn't really get up in the morning, doesn't have pep in their step, doesn't have passion for living, or whatever. Sadness is a necessary stage. You have to grieve things. I've grieved the death of a few very influential men in my life, and I think it was very necessary to go through the sadness. When my father died, I was numb for a very long time, and that was difficult because I never got the release of sadness, or I didn't get the release of sadness for a very long time, and that put me in a position where my life was, well, it wasn't good for a little while there, and I know it takes time to get through grieving, say the death of your father, but it's not good to dwell in the sadness. I mean, it's good to accept the sadness, to embrace it. I mean, embrace, and the reason I bring this up in the MGTOW context, in the grieving the delusion of women, is that you do have to feel sad at some point. If you want to go through the 5 stages in grieving and finally reach acceptance, you have to, I think, and there's good psychological evidence for the grieving process. It's, I mean, I'm not going to argue the psychology here. Hopefully other people have done it better, and if you want to do more research on the 5 stages and healthy grieving, I encourage you to do so. But I'm just working under the precept that you do need to go through sadness, and you should grieve the loss. And I know it's kind of strange that first you're angry, like, no women are good enough, and this, what people would call misogyny and whatnot. So you go through the anger, but then there, I think, should be a moment of sadness where you're like, gosh, what could have been cannot be, and that's a tragedy, because there are so many unhappy people, and if they just were the way that they said they were, or if things were different, it would be so much better, right? And if you can grieve that, if you can accept and embrace the sadness that, say, you're never going to get married, that white picket fence, that's not in your future, the 2.5 kids, the dog, all that, if you can, I guess, shed a tear for that. And also, you know, be sad for the women. I mean, they're kind of impoverished inner lives that so many women have, this shallowness that they have. It's sad that, you know, they won't have as rich of a life as many men do, because, well, they probably don't have the capacity to it, and especially as they get older, they lose all kind of brain excuse me, brain plasticity and ability to learn new things, right? So they don't have the same abilities in a lot of ways, and you know, it's kind of sad that you can't have these warrior women that are geniuses, and however they're portrayed in popular media or whatever. Right. So I mean, if you can, if you have the empathy, I recommend, metaphorically or literally, shedding a tear for these bitches. I know that's not a very empathetic thing to say it in that way, but like, yeah, you just have to, you look at them as kind of sad people, and then finally, when you embrace that, the situation is a lot sadder than I originally thought. Like, I'm never gonna find my dream girl, and relationships suck, and it feels like I'm alone in the world because I have this rich inner life and I can express myself and I'm intelligent and I have all these things going for me, but no one's willing to work at my level, that kind of thing. It's sad, it's difficult, and then when you embrace that, you can move on. You can get to the acceptance, and you can say, well, okay, yes, I am alone in many ways. I, for instance, don't have a whole bunch of people to talk to about biochemistry or business and philosophy and all these things. I mean, there are oases of thought out there, and there are communities and enclaves which I can go to talk about these things, but fundamentally, I am alone. I am an island unto myself. And, yeah, okay, that's sad initially when you think about it, but after you think about it for a little while, you realize, I'm a valuable human being. I've got a lot going for me. I'm an intelligent, hardworking, fairly attractive, although that doesn't really matter because, well, it matters in the sense that you get, statistically, you're paid more and all these things, but I mean, it doesn't matter as far as passing on genes to the next generation or whatnot. But you realize you've got a lot going for you, and maybe you don't have the physical aspect of things, but you've got the rich inner life, or you have great potential and great capacities, and you realize, I'm pretty good just by myself. And you realize that, so long as you like yourself, you are always in good company. And I think that bears repeating. So long as you like yourself, you are always in good company. And you realize that you don't need the fantasy. Reality is sufficient, and you can work within reality to become happy. And then this acceptance leads to a kind of empowerment, self-actualization, because no longer are you dependent on this illusory purpose in life. You can forge your own path, your own meaning, and you can have your own self-esteem, not based off of the value or perceived value of women, or acceptance, or social proof, as the pickup artist might say, or whatnot. It's and I apologize for the stuttering. Right. This is off the cuff. I just felt like saying something a bit conversational for Valentine's Day, because yeah, I think it's a very interesting time to reflect on that which could have been, and that which cannot be, and the acceptance, and the MGTOW philosophy. I think it's an excellent time to make this video, and so I apologize for not being scripted and the verbal tics, but regardless. The acceptance, it has a lot of value to it, but you really do have to go through the 5 stages in order to get to a final stage of self-actualization, whatever comes after acceptance. So yeah, I recommend sadness, as strange and counterintuitive as that may sound, but I recommend that if you're an angry MGTOW, play with the idea of maybe shedding a single tear for these bitches and these blue pill men who will never have the insights and the rich life and the and all of that. I mean, how many people are in just these horrible dramatic, histrionic. Okay, that's the proper use of that word. I was having a hard time with it earlier. histrionic, these overly dramatic relationships, and how dead inside so many people are. I mean, they'll never have what you have. You have the capacity to have a rich inner life, to be an individual, to be a man going his own way. The freedom is scary, and I'll grant you that. I mean, Esther Vilar in The Manipulated Man, she talks about the desire for unfreedom, the desire for slavery that a lot of men have upon realizing that, you know, freedom is an option, but it's not really an option until you accept it. And honestly, you have to grieve the fact that you were a slave for so long. And how many years, how many hours, how many days have you wasted in your life chasing pussy or obsessing over it, right? That's a loss. Grieve that loss. Be sad that is time away from the rest of your life that you could be doing greater things. But I know for me, it's so many years were lost, and I'm never getting those years back. But yeah, that's sad. But I have a hard time feeling as bad about it nowadays. I mean, yeah, I know that my youth was effectively wasted in a lot of ways, chasing women and obsessing over them, and being a hopeless romantic, and learning game, and being a pickup artist for as long as I was in college. Yeah, that was a total waste. I mean, yeah, you get a little bit of perspective, and hopefully you don't get any venereal diseases. There are a few close calls. I'm glad to say that I'm clean and, you know, never caught anything too nasty. Nothing that couldn't be cleared up with antibiotics. So that was good. But it could have been worse, right? I guess that's the point, is that it could have been worse. And that I'm glad that it wasn't, and that I can move on, and that I have a lot going for me, and into the future have a lot of, I don't know how to express it, just potential for life, and self-love, I guess you'd say. So hopefully this has been helpful. I don't know if it is all helpful, and I think it is rather counterintuitive to encourage MGTOWs to grieve, but even if it is a little counterintuitive, I think it may ultimately be helpful. Hopefully, I don't know, this enriches your life in some way. If it hasn't, if this is an old hat, if you knew this all along, I apologize for wasting like 18, 20, however many minutes of your life. But thanks for listening, and have a happy Valentine's Day, I guess. And instead of, you know, loving women, you know, try loving yourself. That's more of a message for the blue pill men out there. Like, what if women aren't as good as they are portrayed to be? And what if maybe you should love yourself more? And what if, you know, hypothetically, being sad or angry is not as bad as people make it out to be? And every time that people tell you not to be angry or sad, that they're doing you a huge disservice and impeding your personal growth. Just a thought, in case you're not a MGTOW, in case these things have never occurred to you. But in any case, have a nice day. And yeah, this is Owl MGTOW saying Happy Valentine's Day, guys.